Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Glowed Up and Woke. In this episode, I am inviting you, as well as anybody you know who might be interested in contributing or postulating or just adding ideas and concepts to this idea that those things that were taught by the religions of the past and the ancient scriptures, all the spiritual traditions, were actually scientifically sound concepts that we are now able to demonstrate and prove scientifically, but they just didn't have microscopes and telescopes and fancy graphics and videos in order to explain these things. So today our scientists are discovering many concepts and many phenomena, and that it's extremely difficult to convey to the masses and to the general public, even with the aid of graphics and all the amazing technological advances that we have. So if you're interested in this idea, if this idea seems viable at all to you, that in the Bible, for example, they are actually describing physics and not something which is separate. I feel as though in our society today we tend to think that there's science, and then there's religion, and there's spiritual stuff, and then there's real stuff. And then the spiritual stuff, it's just kind of not as real as the physical stuff. And I understand that there's good reason for that. The physical stuff is much more predictable, and we have, we can hold it in our hand. We have a much better grasp of it. But truly, the invisible forces which are acting upon the molecules that create the physical world are just as real, if not more real, in the sense that they are creative and they are causing what we experience in the physical world. And the physical world is simply the effect. So that if you want to get into creating your life consciously and really understanding manifestation and elevating your consciousness, then understanding the background or the behind the scenes science to all these spiritual concepts. For example, God. Is there a real scientific basis for what is God, or who is God? Is it possible that God is both a mathematical, physical phenomena that can be explained through physics and science, and also a personal, intuitive, artistic, creative force which can only be truly understood by tuning into it and merging with it and becoming one with it artistically and expressing it, whether it be through an act of kindness and love, or an actual painting, or a song, or a poem, or a massage, or a food dish, like a culinary dish. Anything that you do where you're tuning into and connecting and being one with something that seems to be guiding your behavior without you having to analyze and think and do all the math on all the decisions that you're going to make, that something can be the yang aspect of God, and then we have a yin. So is it possible that there is both a mathematical and intuitive aspects of God which correspond to the mathematical and intuitive sides of our brain, and which have been echoed throughout all the religious traditions and spiritual systems throughout history? For example, the Tao. The Tao Te Ching describes the yin and yang nature of reality, which is this duality nature, which we know in physics is what holds the universe in place: attraction and repulsion. The planets are held in place not because, like, attraction, which is considered a positive, it's not necessarily good all on its own. If you had too much attraction, the planets would collide against each other. And if you had too much repulsion, we would float away. So it's really the dance and the harmony between these polar opposites that generates life and creates the flow and the current of life, which is the definition of the Tao, is the way, or the flow. And then we also have Jesus Christ, who taught us that, I am the way and I am the means. This concept that there is a heavenly Father who is watching over us and guides the behavior of all living things, and that if you seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, as above, so below, then these things will be added on to you. Could very well mean that as above, as you think and feel and have intentions and visions in the way that your mental game is, so below, so will you manifest your life, and so will you perceive and interpret the events that are happening around you based on how how your thinking is, how your mind is. And the mind and the thinking is happening at this higher frequency resonance of the subtler realms, which is considered the spiritual. And back before they had telescopes or any kind of machines that could detect quantum events and quantum computing and things like this, the teachers of the old were not able to present this material in a very concrete scientific way. Imagine trying to teach someone in the 1800s about the internet and computers, and you would probably come up with some sort of fable or an analogy or a metaphor or a parable to convey these messages. So this is mostly an introductory video. It's a prequel to another video where I'm going to actually discuss and name the scientific theories upon which I am building my theory or concept or model of how there is a God that is both physical and describable through observable scientific events, and also intuitive, spiritual, loving, and not as easily described through science, but still can be understood through science, just the way we can understand music and art through science. Things such as symmetry and harmony, entrainment, resonance entrainment, nonlinear systems of entrainment is a big part of it. Feedback systems is going to be a huge part of it. Morphogenetic fields is going to be a huge part of it. Torus fields are going to be a huge part of it. Torus fields that are produced by the heart, and then it's the fractal nature of these torus fields and how they're nested within each other. So in the heart, there's a torus field that goes like this, and then that field is within a greater field, which goes like that, and enters the smaller field, and then comes back out, and then yet another field that all of them enter, all of them go up, receive information from the environment, bring that information back into the central column of the system, which penetrates all the levels of the nested hierarchies, all the nested, it's like, imagine Russian nesting dolls. It penetrates all through that, brings the flow, so that the information is accessed and delivered throughout every level of creation, or every order of magnitude, all the way from the Planck scale geometry of the universe to the gross matter or the physical matter that we see around us, that our biology is made up of, and that our physical world is made up of. So if you find this interesting at all, please feel free to message, contact me, write anything that somehow contributes to this idea that there is a merging, a bridge between science and spirituality and religion. I hope you enjoyed this. Please share, comment, like. Many blessings. Satnam.